we don't really take care of our hygiene, what happens is bacteria dwells in certain areas of our body. So sometimes when it combines with the chemicals that are already present, that creates the odor that we sometimes don't want.
We all have to clean ourselves. Others would wash themselves with a wet towel or possibly a change of clothes. Others would prefer a shower. Others would prefer a bath.
Good personal hygiene is one of the best ways to ensure good health and keep harmful bacteria away. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Join me as we learn the best ways to promote good grooming. Welcome to Med Talk Health Talk. To help us fight the pandemic and other viruses that may come about, we have to be aware of how we treat our personal hygiene. Now, to tell us some interesting facts about personal hygiene, we have with us Dr. Angela Pineda. She's a dermatologist from Derm Clinic. Let's get the definition muna of personal hygiene out of the way. Ano ba talaga pag sinabing personal hygiene? What does this mean?
Actually, there are a lot of types or descriptions of hygiene. But for personal hygiene, it usually pertains to your own self. Like how you take care of yourself, whether it's with your skin, with your habits, as to how to sneeze, to cough, to how to maintain dental hygiene. So it really pertains to your whole body.
Now, Angela, are there any standards when it comes to one's personal hygiene?
Well, there are set standards provided by the WHO or CDC that we became more familiar with during the pandemic. Of course, the past 2 years, there's been a frequent reminder of hand washing. Really washing your hands like 2 to 3 times a day, or if it increases in frequency, like you have other activities, you can also use sanitizers just to cleanse your hands, kasi this is one of the primary ways that bacteria or viruses are passed on. So there are others also, like for example, for nails and for feet, yung just rubbing or cleansing, but those are just basic standards that I think every one of us would usually follow.
Okay, really quick, Angela, when it comes to washing hands or sanitizer, which is best if both are available?
Sanitizers kasi, the main problem is it's a little drying on the skin. So it can wash, it can be a substitute, but it's really more ideal. I think even the WHO would recommend that proper hand washing, it's still better. Soap and water is a good everyday practice. You don't really need to use alcohol because use of soap and water will also prevent your hands from getting too dry.
When it comes to odor, saan ba nanggagaling ang hindi magandang amoy pag hindi magandang personal hygiene?
Well, actually, it comes sometimes, as you mentioned, pwedeng habits din siya kasi our sweat creates chemicals eh. And then sometimes, if we don't really take care of our hygiene, what happens is bacteria dwells in certain areas of our body. So sometimes when it combines with the chemicals that are already present, that creates the odor that we sometimes don't want.
Does the odor also coincide with how much a person sweats? Because iba-iba ang level ng sweat ng mga tao. Some people sweat more than others. Does that correlate also with the amount of odor that they may produce?
Yes, it can be a major factor because if you sweat continuously, somehow actually the wet places, we all know it, that it's breeding places for viruses, bacteria, even fungi. So sometimes if you sweat a lot, that's why we usually recommend for our patients to really, it's either you change your clothes often, or if you know that you're sweating too much, at least you do necessary things. Like for example, you wear loose clothes, or if you know that you're more sweaty than others, then you make sure that you don't wear at least jackets so that it doesn't become cooped in.
Ang daming klaseng sabon on the market now. We have antibacterial soap, we have soap na mabango, we have soap that is moisturizing. What is a good soap to use every day?
Many kinds, or if not all kinds of soap, really have cleansing or antibacterial properties. If someone wants yung bumubula, then you can use that. But for some naman who wants, or if you feel like you have more sensitive skin, that you want something that's less yung bumubula, it doesn't mean that it's less effective.
Is it okay to use soap para sa buhok?
Well, we can use soap for the hair naman, especially for For sometimes, for those with shorter hair, diba, they're not that particular. But it's more yung concern mo if you have longer hair. Because, of course, it's more prone to tangling. So that's why some most use conditioner.
Now, when it comes to personal hygiene, people normally go to dermatologists pag gusto nilang maganda yung skin nila and everything. Is a dermatologist also a good place to go when it comes to personal hygiene?
Yes, because yun nga, as I mentioned, it's the outside. So mostly, for example, for acne, that's something that we really see. And we usually, there are some times that we see, when we see patients, we see na some overdo it or ang dami na palang creams na ginagamit. So we advise them that it's better to not use naman too little, but to really just have a good habit instead of mixing and matching.
Now, when it comes also to personal hygiene, one of the more common things that people use is number one is deodorants, number two is pabango. Are there any drawbacks to using deodorants? Is there a certain chemical that people should be wary about? Is there a way to use too much deodorant?
For deodorant, it's not gonna really affect your skin kasi its properties are really to just control the sweat eh. Pero siguro it's just we have to remember with caution because most of the Filipinos or diba, Asian skin, there's a tendency to darken. So sometimes we combine it with whitening creams. Sometimes if we overdo it, kasi nga numinipis yung barrier tapos magde-deodorant ka, pwedeng mas ma-irritate. So usually, we allot like more time para hindi sunod-sunod yung pagpahid mo on your skin of the different creams.
So how about those who may have body odor but use pabango, perfume, to try and cover that up? Are there any drawbacks to that? Masama ba yun in the long run?
Well, yung pabango naman, there are, ang drawback lang with yung perfumes is there are a lot of it na cause ng irritant contact dermatitis. So kung baga, pag ginagamit mo siya on your skin or pag nasobrahan, kasi of course there's alcohol there, the fragrances have chemicals that when infused to your body, if you get easily irritated, if your body's more sensitive, pwedeng mag-react lang yung skin mo. But if you use just a little of it, every day or if feeling mo hindi ka ganun ka sure, you can put it on your clothes so that at least doon naman siya mas nag-mix.
Now, Doc Angela, when it comes to body odor, does diet have a big role to play dun sa odor that is emitted by a person?
Well, of course, it's also cultural na sometimes for some, if you eat a lot of spices, like especially we know what foods may cause, diba? Even not just body odor, but even breath. Diba? For example, yung mga garlic. So that's why it's really advisable to just take a moderate amount of it. Or if you take it excessively, let's evaluate. Kasi syempre, it comes in the body eh. So it has to have a way to come out.
Personal hygiene care can really depend also on the culture in which you live in. So more on this when we return. Keep it here on Med Talk, Health Talk. And welcome back to Med Talk, Health Talk. Now, personal hygiene can help protect us from various diseases and help maintain our overall health. That is why it is important to value good grooming. However, this can mean different things for different cultures. Now, here to tell us more about this and how all of this is related, we have with us Anthony Balisi, who is an anthropologist from Ugnayang Pang-Agham Tao. Now, we're talking about good personal hygiene, but we'd like to share with the audience how this can mean something for us as Filipinos, but it can also mean something for other people around the world. So let's talk about that. How is hygiene different, or what is personal hygiene in both a cultural as well as a geographical context?
Of course, Doc, hygiene, like the way you eat, the way you think, the way you write, is culturally bound. Hygiene, the concept of hygiene, is manipulated by the culture you grew up with and the environment you grew up with. So that's cultural, one, and that's geographic. A hygiene for me, like for example, who grew up in Metro Manila, might be very different from someone who grew up in an island barangay in the Philippines, or possibly what is clean and what is not clean can be very different from someone who grew up in Southeast Asia and somewhere in Europe. Another thing I'd like to talk about is that we Filipinos, especially in the rural areas, they always leave their slippers or footwear when they come into your house. So this is one basic concept here, is that you leave the dirty things outside before coming in to one's house. In some cultures, this is also a form of respect. So whenever you come to one's house, you leave your slippers outside or you leave your shoes outside, so as a respect for the house owner. But at the same time, this is also a concept of leaving the dirty things, especially if you step on something from the outside, you don't bring it to inside the house.
Paano natin ma-explain to with regards in connection with personal hygiene? Does it mean na walang tama o mali pagdating sa personal hygiene? It's all based on your culture at kung saan ka lumaki.
Well, it's not walang tama o walang mali. There are standards, there are basics, but there are also differences on how you execute the standard or the basic. Like for example, we all know that we all have to clean ourselves. Others would wash themselves with a wet towel or possibly change of clothes. Others would prefer a shower. Others would prefer a bath. So it differs from one culture to another. It also differs from one individual to other.
And let's go one step further and apply it to Filipinos here in the Philippines. Earlier you mentioned how your personal hygiene habits growing up in Metro Manila may be different from someone in a far-off island who is a little bit far from the metropolis, less ang kanyang accessibility to certain things. But there's always a certain basic, a standard of cleanliness to protect ourselves, to protect our health when it comes to personal hygiene. How can we encourage that for those who were not probably so accustomed to so many personal hygiene products growing up? How can we encourage this notion of personal hygiene even at the basic level?
Well, at the basic level, they have to have good access to clean water. That includes clean water for cleaning yourself, for bathing, for cooking, and clean water for drinking. That's one basic that we need to provide for all our communities, whether it be urban, whether it be rural, whether it be island, or whether it be the mountain provinces. So that's one basic. And of course, earlier we mentioned it's cultural, it's geographic. I have to mention a third one, it's also economic. So access to economic resources can also impact on the way you perceive hygiene.
Now, another thing that we'd like to emphasize here is that sometimes people are quick to judge. Pag meron silang hindi na amoy na maganda, automatic, that's poor personal hygiene. But that could be culturally based, that could be geographically based, economically based.
It can also be based, the way you eat can also impact on the smell you exude when you sweat. So like for example, I think most of the people who love eating onions and a lot of curry would always exude this certain exotic scent. Yeah, and that scent might be offensive for some, and that scent might be pleasant for some.
So definitely thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Balisi, for being with us and sharing your knowledge, especially when it comes to different places and different practices.
Thank you
as
also
well
for having me here.
There's more to personal hygiene than just washing your hands, so we'll be covering a lot more when Med Talk Health Talk returns. Good personal hygiene is key in keeping not just ourselves, but those around us healthy as well as happy. Now let's welcome back to the show Dr. Angela Pineda, who's a dermatologist from Derm Clinic. Now, Angela, when it comes to people just being aware and trying to be conscious about their personal hygiene, what are some of the most basic practices? How can our viewers be aware na dapat talaga personal hygiene should be kept?
Number one, of course, it's to really take a bath twice a day. So it can be naman na And then after that, usually we recommend, kasi some, di ba, it's either palit na lang ng clothes, but sometimes kasi we don't cleanse the body as much. Second is, of course, for women particularly, who love to put on makeup, dapat it's not just, you don't sleep with makeup on, diba? So dapat you just cleanse your skin after, just to make sure that walang natitirang chemicals that could irritate or cause pimples. And then for men, sometimes, or those with an active lifestyle, usually they go to the gym, they go exercise. So it's best after that you don't let sweat remain in your body because it can trigger a lot of skin conditions as well.
Now, when it comes to disinfecting our belongings, syempre, our viewers are very aware of this because of the pandemic and all the safety practices. When it comes to disinfecting our things, what should our viewers know about? Anong klaseng disinfectant ang both effective but safe on our skin?
I think for now, a lot of people are coming out, diba? So siguro when you get home, it's still that you keep those outside clothes, you change immediately so that whatever you got from outside, you get to laundry that already. And then maybe for at home, of course, there are cleaning ingredients naman or somehow yung mga pang-cleaning surfaces naman na gamit eh. So any ingredient for that can be used kasi sometimes people overdo it, like may alcohol na, may ganito na. But the cleaning surfaces, the materials we use, the chemicals that are included are already safe. But siguro reminder lang din for those who clean their houses or even wash the dishes, to wear gloves if they feel like medyo matapang kasi the cleaning ingredients at home are stronger than your personal hygiene ingredients.
Now, when it comes to personal hygiene, Doc Angela, is it okay that ang isang tao ay malinis sa kanyang sarili, but ang surroundings naman niya ang gulo-gulo, ang daming kalat, ang daming pas hindi nalilinis din? Should the surroundings be included as well with good personal hygiene?
Right now, of course, aside from the work from home, people are going to their offices. It's best to keep your area clean, whether it's in your room, it's in your office, it's in your cubicle, because it's very not just pleasant or nice to look at, but it also prevents that you get bacteria. Like as I mentioned, the reason why we wash our hands because we keep holding other items around us. So every time, if our workplace is dirty, then we could get some bacteria or viral infections from there.
Now, I'm sure our viewers have been doing this more effectively for the past 2 years, but let's just remind them on how effective proper hand washing is in trying to fight away bacteria and viruses and just overall good personal hygiene.
Proper hand washing is really one of the most effective but non-expensive ways. Of course, we just usually wash your hands with water and then you apply soap and then make sure that you lather. Sometimes, some people kasi just put soap lang, diba? So, hindi mo na siya nawawash. That's why we need to remember the purpose, that we want the whole area, not just the palms, but also yung top.
Any advice for our viewers? Any tips, especially when it comes to good personal hygiene?
For our viewers, I think one of the things is that we should really take care of our skin, diba? It's to love yourself and to at least know that personal hygiene, it's not a luxury. It's an everyday necessity that we need to have so that will also be more healthy.
Very good, and thank you so much, Angela, for sharing your expertise, sharing those practical tips with me and the viewers. Because in this day and age, you can never be too careful really when it comes to trying to fend away viruses, bacteria, and other things that may harm your health. So always make sure that your personal hygiene is there and maintained. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk.